So my guest today is Tina Everett. Tina is a certified career coach and counselor, licensed mental health professional, and the host of the Confident Careerist podcast. Tina speaks directly to purpose-driven students and professionals about how to find clarity, gain confidence, and build momentum toward creating a brighter future. Tina, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, folks, we're going to talk about minimizing risk today and a bunch of other stuff too, but this is our launch point for the conversation. And I got to say, we all know that changing jobs, changing careers involves a certain amount of risk. How does someone, when they're in panic mode, oh my God, I'm going to change jobs, I'm going to leave the confines of mommy or daddy employer and go someplace else, how do they minimize the risk that they feel of the change?
Great question, Jeff. How do we minimize risk and maximize success?
Right?
Oh,
that too.
Yeah, get to where we're going. So something to keep in mind, I think, is that employees and employers, they're both concerned about risk. So for the employer, it's the risk of losing a lot of money if a new hire doesn't work out. And for the job seeker, the risk is often a fear of failure. So you want to avoid being a hiring risk and setting yourself up to fail. There are also bad employees and there's bad employers. So if you want to avoid being that disgruntled employee who works for a company that doesn't meet your expectations, you have to learn how to minimize your risks and create a no-fail, what I like to call a no-fail job search. And the way you do that is you design a purposeful job search.
Ooh, a purposeful job search. How do you define a purposeful job search?
I define a purposeful job search by really knowing who, with a capital WHO, who you are and the value you offer an employer. So you can target the companies that you want to or you'd like to work for and set your job search strategy. So there's 3 steps really. Like step 1 is set a strategy, have a job search plan. Step 2 is get focused, do your research, and have a targeted company list. And make sure that your marketing materials are up to date and relevant to the 21st century. And step 3 is build your network. Take the time to create a system for building and for maintaining strong professional relationships. It is essential for not only a successful job search, it's also necessary for career development and advancement. And also consider where you're starting from in your life and in your career. If you're looking for a new job or changing your career, there are most likely other things in your life that require your time and your energy. So you may have to reprioritize some of those things to be able to focus your attention on the changes that you want to make in your professional work life. Wow. So you have to make sure that you have the tools, Jeff, right? The resources, the support, and the strategies that are necessary to minimize the risks and maximize your success.
And I want to add in one extra thing on top of that, and that is the courage that when the pressure is on during the process and you're interviewing with someone and they're doing parameter testing, an employer who says, you're going to have to wear a lot of hats around here. That's my new favorite one. You have to wear a lot of hats, which is a signal as we're understaffed and you're going to have to do a bunch of stuff. You're okay with wearing a lot of hats, aren't you? I'm not so sure about that. Or that you know what your value is because you've done the research in advance and they're saying, we should take $15,000 less. Or this job that involves, and one of the issues to me always is that everyone exaggerates during a job search. People exaggerate their capabilities. Employers never tell you about the last 4 people who sat at their desk and why they left. And if you've got a third-party recruiter who's representing you and them, the best ones are only the ones who are the messengers of the exaggeration. They're not adding their own to the equation. So we've got a lot to cover. So on that number one thing that someone needs to do, repeat what it is again.
Yes, step one is simply to set a strategy and to have a job search plan.
So how does someone develop a strategy and build a plan?
Well, it starts with knowing who you are and what you're wanting to target. You know, what is the role that you're wanting to have and where do you want to work? So that's the beginning of it. That's a bit of a deeper work. So I have an example that I'd like to share. And before I share it, I want to just say that when you were sharing a moment ago, it sounds like, and I would agree, that asking questions, being curious about what is it that you need to know in order to make a decision. So if someone says to you, you're going to need to wear a lot of hats, rather than just saying, agreeing or disagreeing, like, what does that mean? Like, double click on that. Try to ask a question to find out don't assume you know what that means, right? Because then you might end up saying yes and getting into a position that is a bad fit. Maybe
Or
it's another
saying no
great
and wind up missing on the opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Either
So, you
way.
know, when you're making important decisions in your life, when you're deciding who you're going to marry, perhaps where you're going to buy your first home, or what job you want to do next, those are really important decisions. And you need to do your research and find out what you don't know in order to be empowered to make those decisions. You don't just wing it, right?
No. Although a lot of people do, unfortunately, and they make tragic mistakes.
Yeah.
So
So I live in Colorado, and in Colorado, we do a lot of hiking and climb a lot of mountains. So my example is sort of from the place that I live and a lot of the people that I work with who really value that type of lifestyle. So here's my example. If you want to climb a mountain, you wouldn't expect to do that successfully by just putting on a pair of shoes and heading in the general direction of your destination. You would begin with a strategy and with a plan. You would assess your level of fitness and perhaps start to get yourself in top shape. You would research your options and decide on the specific mountains that you'd like to climb. You would get a map and plan out the best routes. And you would explore the gear you need to ensure preparation for unforeseen obstacles such as inclement weather. So what are you doing here? You're minimizing your risks. You're doing everything that is within your control to ensure that you reach your destination. If you were to throw on an old pair of shoes and start heading in the general direction of your climb, you really risk not making it to the top. Not because you aren't capable, but you don't have what you need to make the journey. You'll most likely give up too soon, and you'll feel like a failure, which will erode your confidence. So the next step in your career.
I'm going to pause there for 1 second
Yeah.
to say, and amateurs don't plan. Amateurs
don't plan.
Amateurs don't rehearse, they don't practice, they don't train, they don't put themselves in the position to be successful. They are the ones who wing it. You know, they can blow with the breeze in this direction or that direction, but they're not clear in their core what serves them. And that's really the starting point about what's most important to you in this next job or organization. I apologize for interrupting.
No, that they're not, I love that. They're not clear in their core. That's so important to be clear and to do the work. And it takes time. It takes time to get to the top of the mountain. It takes time to land your ideal job. Maybe not, maybe you get lucky and it doesn't take as much time, or whatever time frame you're thinking about, but put in the work so that you are in the driver's seat. You're not at, what I like to say, in the passenger seat being driven around to places you don't even want to go, or locked in the trunk, just kind of blindly going along your career path. So I like to tell people that the next step in your career is like climbing a mountain. The more purposeful and prepared you can be, the more likely you are to reach your goals. You'll minimize those risks, you'll maximize your success, and you'll even discover opportunities along the way that you may not have expected.
As someone said to me yesterday or the day before, there are a lot of jobs and careers that you may not know about, that unless you're out there doing your work in advance, you may not know this particular title or function even exists. And thus, it's important to do your work. It's important to do your prep. Again, consistent with who you are and what you want, and to do the research that's going to help you be successful.
Absolutely. Getting focus is that next step, doing the research. And sometimes people get really hung up on the title of the job that they're wanting. And I think that's important, but also like, where do you want to work? Do some research around understanding the company and the company culture. Read their website, and then through the networking part, get to know people who work there and have a conversation. Get some true, real information. Don't just go by what you read. Get a feel. How can you become an insider when you're an outsider? You probably have some good tips on that.
I do, but today's show is about you today. But one thing I'll say, folks, is if you're someone who goes to Glassdoor to see what people say, recognize everyone who goes to Glassdoor is a hater. There's someone who in one way or another it's not a successful experience for them. Thus, all you want to do there is look for the commonality of the issues as something that you can then investigate, because you may have met someone who in one way or another exaggerated their capabilities, didn't put in the work, et cetera, but just be aware, but don't take it as being a fact. It's, again, something to investigate in the course of your conversations.
Great advice.
Thank you. So are we on 2 or 3?
Of the steps?
Yeah.
We kind of talked briefly about each of them. So step 1 was just get your strategy, have a plan. Step 2 is to get focused, and step 3 is to build your network.
So building a network. How would you suggest people start off the networking process? Because after all, networking is one of those things that's like root canal for a lot of people. They don't want to be seen as one of those people. I haven't spoken to them in 5 years, and I'm now going to reach out to them and go, hi, it's been a long time. And everyone knows you're looking for a job at that moment. How do you recommend that someone start networking again?
Yeah. So your intention for networking is to build relationships, and maybe you're reconnecting with people that you haven't connected with. They're already connections, or you're creating new connections. But I would say the first step is to understand who you are and what the value is that you offer. And what are you focusing on? What are you looking for? Yes, you're looking for a job, but who do you need to know, and what's your value? So being able to be able to articulate your ask, be succinct. I'm looking for a connection at this company. I'm considering changing jobs for this reason. Just be very specific about what your intention is. So maybe writing up a short blurb for yourself, like I don't know what we would call it. I don't want to call it an elevator pitch, but
Boo, elevator pitches. Boo.
Yeah, just something that you like, your why, that's going to help motivate you, because it's going to get uncomfortable. So having that, maybe even having a networking resume, something that you can share that shows your accomplishments, but be really clear on your ask, and then know who you're talking to. Can you be inquisitive? And can you do your homework up front to find common ground? Hey, Jeff, I listened to your most recent podcast and this really stood out to me. Thank you for sharing that. And then continue on. Think about it as a conversation. You're building relationships. It's not just a transaction. It takes time. And if you have not been building a network or nourishing your network for decades or years, then start today and know it's about planting seeds, right? Put a system in place so that it's something you get up and you spend 15 minutes on every day, being in conversation. So in my mind, I'm thinking of LinkedIn a lot. I'm thinking of online networking because that's what we've been doing so much since COVID. But the online applies to offline as well. It's just that it's more three-dimensional, right? Mm-hmm. You're able to perhaps shake a hand now and have more of a texture to your interaction because you're maybe in an environment that is, a restaurant or at a conference. So there's something else to draw from to draw the common ground rather than just like, hey, so-and-so on LinkedIn, or I found this article. So the conversation is just slightly different.
Yeah. And then they don't seem as synthetic when you're in person. We've all needed to adapt to the world of the pandemic. And we've all been on camera and we've all been interacting with people online during this time. And for many of us who are vaccinated, it's a safer climate to get back in touch and meet with people. So this is the time ideally to do it. And for those you haven't been in contact with for 5 years, which is the classic, oh my God, they're going to think I'm looking for a job and that's why I'm contacting them. Well, okay. So on the first conversation, you don't ask about a referral. You don't just do a hi, how are you? It feels like 100 years since we were last in contact. Your name popped into my mind. I just thought I would reach out to see how you and your family were. Just do a social call. A few weeks later, you do another social call. A few weeks later, you make the ask. Just reconnect and treat people like people again because we can.
Because we can, and you never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. You never know. And so expanding your network and staying connected to your network is really important. And I think we all realize that this last year, where many of us have felt isolated or alone. So there's a lot of different ways to build your network. And I think that I hear a lot from my clients that it's the one thing that they regret early in their career, including myself, that if I understood the importance of that and I knew how to do it, it really would have helped me with my career development and my advancement. It would have taken away a lot of the stress and anxiety when I was faced with a change that felt like it needed to be sudden, like, oh my gosh, I need to find a new job or yesterday, right? Building your network takes time if you want to do it right. And you can learn from the people that reach out to you where it doesn't feel good. Take note and don't do that. Do something else. How would you like to be reached out to? How would you like someone to connect to you?
Whether online or in person, I always believe you do it as one human being to another, not as one transaction leading to another transaction. A previous guest of mine likes to be a connector for other people. So people come to her to be connected with someone else. You can be a connector for people because they need help just like you need help. You know people that they don't. And by the way, the job search statistics for years is that 70% of positions were filled as a result of networking, and 70% of the 70%, or 49%, come as a result of introductions to people you network knows you don't. That's going to be true of them reaching out to you. So be that connector for other people so that they trust you again, because if there's been a gap, for them, it's not a useful. The first contact is not going to mean a heck of a lot. It's about how you rebuild the relationship that may have been a daily touch in the past when you worked together, or I know someone who got a job because of their cleaning person, of all ridiculous things. It's a great story, but the cleaning person became aware that this guy was looking for a job. And her husband was the president of a bank, and she did this in order to maintain humility.
Mm,
You never know. So make
you
sure a
never
lot of
know.
people know.
Yeah. I like to say explore all of your possibilities, remain open to planned happenstance to help you forge a path forward with clarity and with confidence.
Now, let's get back to this risk thing here for a second. So it comes to the point where you're going to make a decision about an offer, and you followed the plan, and you got two offers, and now it's okay. What do I do? The money's the same. The opportunities are really good. Any suggestions you have for people minimizing the risk of making the thing they fear most? Oh my God, I made the wrong choice.
Yeah, that fear of failing or, uh-oh, the grass wasn't greener on the other side. Well, consider a position analysis. This is something I take my clients through, and it really does start with getting clear about what are your requirements. Those are the things that are non-negotiable. What are the things that you need in order to be satisfied and happy? Those are things that are negotiable. And what are the wants? That's icing on the cake. You don't necessarily need it to be happy. And that might help you discern more of which one's going to be a better fit. And then also making sure you've done your homework where you have a real felt sense of, is this a good match? Some people value the culture of the company. If they really want to be in a role where there's a ton of support and collaboration, that might trump the salary. So know what it is for you and know what the risks are. So a different analogy is like, I was out on my bike yesterday, and before I went on I planned, I'm gonna do a bike ride today, about a 2-hour window. This is what I love to do to recharge during the workday. I'm very lucky I can do that, but it was about to rain. And I said to myself, well, what's the risk? What's the risk if I get on my bike and it rains on me? Well, so I'm cold and uncomfortable and wet for an hour. Big deal, right? Now, if the risk was that I go out on my bike and it rains and I lose all my savings, that's huge. So I may not do that. So it's finding a way for you to do a position analysis and discern, kind of predict the outcome and weigh the risks.
I started to tell people recently there are 3 parts of the body to pay attention to: head, heart, gut. Now, when you're not sure, that's the head talking. What do you do to calm the mind down so that it doesn't have to feel that fearful? Your heart, well, that one I'm not going to help with. Everyone has a place in their heart where perhaps you'll fall in love with a job. And you have to just be aware of the other 2 parts of the body to make sure that they're comforted too, while your heart is going, I really want to work for her. I really want to work for him. But the money's too low and the work environment's too ugly. It's an old building and the bathroom was disgusting when I went there. There are lots of things that show up that you have to pay attention to. And, you laughed, and it is part of where you're going to go to work. So it's all this kind of stuff you pay attention to and see what you can do to calm those parts down, or say, thank you. That was a great intervention to help me avoid a catastrophe later on. Whichever it is fine. It's just the idea that you want to listen to it and then sort it out.
Listen to it and sort it out. If you know that you don't want to travel for work 3 weeks out of the month, and you accept a position where you're traveling a lot of the time, it'll end up being an unsolvable problem. Like you'll be, oh, this is great, I'm getting X amount of money, but you didn't listen to what the requirement was. It's not going to work out long term. You thought, oh, so a lot of times we get attached to the idea of something, even in our relationships. I like the idea of working on the penthouse level and having a corner office. I get attached to the idea of being in this amazing relationship. But if we don't do the work to understand all of the details of that and really discern, then the risks go up, or it's sort of blind. We hope it'll work out. So it's that felt sense. How do you want to feel in this position? How do you want to feel in these relationships, all the different relationships you have with work, the relationships with the environment, the relationships with your coworkers, the relationship with the role and the tasks that you're doing, all those things. What is your relationship with all that? And is that going to serve your needs and support your life, your lifestyle?
Tina, we've got a limited amount of time here, and I know you've got a schedule. What haven't we covered yet that we really should?
Well, I think maybe before you would go into a purposeful job search is make sure that you do the work to really get clear on the direction that you want to go. And if you want to learn more, I do have a brief, I think it's a 45-minute audio training, how to figure out a clear direction for your career path, where you'll learn 3 strategies to help you find that clarity and that confidence and prepare you for building a career, and a life you love. So don't skip out on that important work.
I'll have a link to that in the show notes, folks, so that this way you can go there, sign up, do the download, and listen to Tina do some more work. Beyond that, is there a way that you'd like people to connect with you if they have questions?
They can go to my website, Tina, spelled T-E-E-N-A, Evert, EVERT.com.
Fabulous. Tina, thanks for making time today. And folks, we'll be back soon with more. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. My website has a ton of great information on it. Go to thebiggamehunter.us. In the blog, there are thousands of posts that you can watch, listen to, or read that will help you. Also, if you're interested in some of my courses or my books, there are links on the site where you can order them as well. Also want to mention, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Mention that you saw the interview. I like knowing I'm helping some folks. And I'll also say, if you're interested in my coaching, you can schedule time at the website for a free discovery call or schedule time for coaching. Obviously, I'd love to help. Hope you have a terrific day. And most importantly, be great. Take care.